speak to the opposition in Zimbabwe. We're joined from Harare by Advocate Fadzayi Mahere, the national spokesperson for Citizens for Coalition for Change, rather. Fadzayi, we meet again and again under not so pleasurable circumstances. There is a video that is doing the rounds on social media where elderly people are being assaulted. What do we know about the circumstances and the veracity of that video?
So that video depicts a small group meeting that was being held by 7 elderly CCC members, opposition members, and they were at the private homestead of Mr. Seremani, who is over 65 years old, together with his wife, who's also of similar age. They're together with 4 other elderly people who are in their 60s and 70s, and then 3 others who are in about their 50s. And you see young ZANU-PF youths going and terrorizing them. What are your names? What are your ID numbers? Why are you doing CCC activity? What at your age, how can you possibly support the opposition? Now, what this tells us is that ZANU-PF's back is against the wall. We know that their trademark conduct is to resort to violence whenever they've lost popular support. And they've always, put forward this myth that they're strong in the rural areas and they're strong with, the older age group. And all of these myths have been completely busted ever since President Nelson Chamisa, rolled out a mass mobilization program known as Murewa into all rural areas in Zimbabwe. There's been a huge upsurge of support for the opposition following this mass mobilization project that's being driven by President Nelson Chamisa and the CCC, where we are seeing every single village, being, campaigned to, mobilized for change in 2023. And this was one of the meetings that was being held, where you see all the elderly in the community, in the small village, coming together and, organizing for change. And that's why ZANU-PF responded in the way that they did. You see brutal beatings of older people, which is countercultural. It violates Ubuntu. It's unconstitutional, it's criminal, it's unlawful. We made police reports and our rapid response team quickly went to the scene to try and protect them. But ZANU-PF clearly have lost popular support, and they can see that they're going to lose in 2023, which is why they're behaving in this unconstitutional way.
And just a note for you and for our viewers that we are also pursuing ZANU-PF in order to get some sort of response or reaction to this news. I mean, taking a look at that video, there's an elderly man in a pink shirt who is being beaten ferociously by young men who are using sticks, but also quite disturbingly, there's a young boy who is sitting on the ground, who is watching this assault of an elderly person. That psychological infliction of not only abuse, but fear in this child as well.
Absolutely. And, what's most disturbing about this incident of violence is that ZANU-PF is doing what it has consistently done. This is not an isolated incident. It's part of a huge pattern of conduct that we've seen on the part of ZANU-PF. Its deputy leader last year said that the CCC should be crushed like lice. We've got a number of videos where they say at their rallies that President Nelson Chamisa and the CCC should be killed. We've had 2 incidents of murders of CCC members for which there's been no accountability. They've done this with impunity. And in rural areas, we've got a number of top ZANU-PF officials on record saying that those in rural areas who support the CCC are sellouts, their homes should be burnt and they should be killed. Now, obviously, ZANU-PF has come out and said that it's not us. They try and, dissociate themselves with this violence. But those in this community, eyewitnesses to this, most unfortunate incident, say that they know the perpetrators. These perpetrators have been reported to the police, and it's known that they're part of ZANU-PF. So this attempt at propaganda to try and say that the CCC is somehow staging this is completely improbable. And in fact, it's the sort of failure to take account for their criminal conduct that has brought Zimbabwe to this place. ZANU-PF simply can't be accountable. You'll never hear their top leaders denouncing this sort of violence, this incident that took place in Murewa. In fact, they give energy to their supporters saying, no, go out and beat them, crowd round them and make sure you beat them, kill them, crush them, burn down their homes. That's what they continue to say. And we've seen them weaponizing state institutions, including traditional leaders and a number of others, setting up terror gangs in rural communities to try and terrorize people. And it just so happens that this particular incident has been caught on video, but it's part of a wide pattern of conduct. And the Zimbabwe Peace Project has done phenomenal work documenting this. If you just go online, this is an episode that happens almost every single week, and this is what the CCC has been up against. And yet you still see citizens coming out because Zimbabwe is sick and tired of the poverty, injustice, and corruption of ZANU-PF. So they're prepared to stand up to ZANU-PF and say, look, we want change in 2023, which is why this is such an important election for the citizens.
One of the conditions of lifting sanctions, targeted sanctions against individuals, is the enshrining of human rights. And then you hear the mantra that these sanctions are harming the people of Zimbabwe, even though it is targeted sanctions against particular individuals. What then does this do for that mantra of lift sanctions against Zimbabwe?
What we've always said about ZANU-PF's purported international re-engagement drive is that it's not backed by any sincerity to do right by the citizens. And what we've said as the CCC consistently is that sanctions are not good for any country. But we're the only party that's got a clear pathway for the removal of those sanctions, which includes, ensuring that respect for the rule of law and human rights is restored, ensuring that Zimbabwe comports itself like a country that, complies with basic legal instruments like the SADC Treaty on Human Rights, the African Union, Charter on Human Rights, just respect for the dignity of the people. If you look at why those sanctions were put in place, it's because of the conduct of ZANU-PF, and unfortunately, the people who created the problem simply don't have the tools to have it removed. And so we continue to say that we need a government that's sincere, that's going to do right by the people, that is not beating elderly citizens up. That is violence is a weapon of those who've lost all popular support and have run out of ideas. And the reason that they're so afraid of the CCC is we don't come and give people handouts and go about vote buying or using any sort of coercion. It's the big idea that the CCC stands for that's causing all citizens from all walks of life, all age groups, all creeds, all races to come together and say, look, we want change in 2023, which is why we've consistently said that we're the only party that can put Zimbabwe back on a path for progress. We've got a new Great Zimbabwe Blueprint, which sets out our big vision for the country and for all sectors and for all industries. And that's why we say that, we're Zimbabwe's best foot forward to win the nation for change this year.
Advocate Fadzayi Mahere speaks for Citizens Coalition for Change, an opposition party in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for availing yourself.